Hey Ben,
Just like old times.
just like old times, man. Fantastic to see you.
See
So,
you as well. It's been far too long, but you look handsome and charming as ever.
well,
Yeah.
Ben, I wanted to ask you about something. Something kind of funny happened to me about a week ago. I woke up in the morning and I had this little bump under my eye,
Like
and
a
about
bump
a it
in the
was
skin under the eye, like a
yeah.
sty.
Well, no, but well, at first it was just like a puffy lump, and it was a very defined, small, puffy lump. And within the next 3 days, I had bags under my eyes.
Did they go away?
Sort of, not really. Maybe it's starting to go away, but I know. I mean, I thought, what did I eat? What did
All
I
that.
eat?
Guess what you call that? Old age.
There are a couple
Well,
things in the fridge that got tossed in the trash, though, because I kind of thought, something caused this, man.
welcome to it. Those are the little things that happen. They're small and they're minor, but they're
Mm.
just things that start to manifest as we get older. You're probably, what are you, 40 now? 41?
Oh, that'd be great.
How old?
44.
Okay, it's pretty. It's not a big deal, but it's just these are the kinds of things that happen. And you're lucky you've been taking care of yourself. You've been supplementing, and you're aware of how to take care of your body, and you work out, and all these kinds of things. So you're going to stave it off. But most of us, the average American, doesn't know anything about that kind of stuff. And
Mm.
by the age of 40, we're starting to break down. And by the age of 50, we're breaking down significantly. And in our 50s, for a lot of people, that's when diseases start to show up. And
Yeah.
it's more common for people to be in their 50s and be on prescription drugs than not. I'm 60, and people ask me all the time, "What drugs am I on?" And
Hmm.
I'm like,
Right.
I don't do it.
You're
I don't do
supposed to be on at least four, right?
you're supposed to be on. It sounds weird. So that's just what happens to the body. And that's why it's so important to start with a good nutritional supplement program, lifestyle choices, changing the way you eat, doing all the things that you have to do to stay healthy when you're 40, when you're in your 30s, even when you're in your 20s. The younger you start, the more likely it is that you'll be able to stave off some of these symptoms. So I don't mean to be glib, but that doesn't sound like it's a major thing. It just sounds like it's something, the manifestations of the body beginning to break down, of biochemistry, metabolism starting to go awry, and treat it as a warning sign. There's always things we can do better. It doesn't mean your life is messed up. There's always ways that you can fine tune your
Right.
health regimen, whatever it is
Right.
that you're doing.
Right. For sure. I would certainly want to get onto one of our topics, but
Just
I had a
related, right?
real laugh the other day, Ben, and this might lead to something. I'm kind of listening to some music or something like that on YouTube, and they play those ads all the time these days. So
Yeah,
this
right.
ad comes up, and I'm kind of listening to it in the background, and it was for a pharmaceutical drug. It was called something like Albatol or something. I don't remember exactly what the name was because I wasn't really paying attention until they got to this line at the end. They said. They said, "Do not take Albatol if you're allergic to Albatol." I love the logic there. I want to meet the lawyer who had them write that one out.
They're really covering all their bases on that. Right. Yeah, but that, it's funny. It's kind of, it's not funny. It's really interesting how whenever you hear drugs, you hear more side effects than you hear benefits. And I noticed this in pharmacy school. I remember, I'll never forget this. We watched a movie on beta blockers. You've heard of beta blockers, I'm sure. This was in the 1980s. This was 1984, probably 1985. And beta blockers had just come out. And they were supposed to revolutionize cardiovascular disease. And we had to watch a movie on beta blockers put out by the Ayers company, which was the maker of this radical new beta blocker, the first beta blocker called Inderal. We now know it as propranolol generically. And it was the first of this class of drugs that was supposed to revolutionize cardiovascular health, and they were raving about it and how wonderful it was. The movie was about an hour long, 15 minutes about how great Inderal or propranolol was and how revolutionary it was going to be, and 45 minutes of some lady reading the side effects. Really, literally, I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
Endless side effects. I mean, she went through the entire package insert of side effects, and beta blockers to this day are among the most toxic classes of pharmaceuticals that you could take, and they're very commonly prescribed. And anybody who's on a beta blocker knows that they get tired when they're on a beta blocker, they lose their sex drive, they get depressed, they gain weight, they just feel lousy when they're on a beta blocker, but their blood pressure does go down.
Yeah.
And it does protect their heart. And that's just the drug mentality that we have. And I'm not beating anybody up, and I'm not really beating the drug companies or the medical model up. I'm just saying the mentality we have of using medications to treat degenerative disease is flawed. It's a bad strategy, and it can't help but lead to toxicities and side effects and adverse reactions, many of which we don't even recognize. You know, when you take a prescription drug, Jonty, your body utilizes vitamin C to detoxify that prescription drug. It utilizes vitamin A, it utilizes minerals, it utilizes amino acids, it utilizes essential fatty acids, it utilizes nutritional nutrients, what we call essential nutrients, to detoxify, which leads you to deficiencies, especially if you're not supplementing, particularly if you're not supplementing, which most people aren't. So, and that's why I say the more drugs you're on, the more you need to supplement. And we don't even notice. You may have, for example, a B vitamin deficiency, because thiamine and the B vitamins are involved in detoxification, that will show up as heart disease, and you were taking the beta blocker for your heart in the first place.
Right.
You know, and they'll say you died of a heart attack, and they won't know that you died of a heart attack secondary to nutritional deficiencies that were caused
by the beta blockers.
Caused by the body trying to detoxify the medication. It's just a flawed strategy. And so we talked in classic examples what we're going to talk about today. And I sent you this article, and I want to discuss it because it's just a classic case of how of this bad idea of using medication to treat what is really the body's chronic degeneration. In the case of this new drug that we talked about, or that I sent you the article on, it's Alzheimer's dementia. So there hasn't been a new drug for Alzheimer's dementia, and so all over the press there was the new drug is about to be approved by the FDA. Even though I read a couple days ago their scientific board decided not to approve it, or suggested not approving it. They still may approve it, but they had some kind of board at the FDA that did not approve it.
Yeah, well, that was the red flag for me when I was reading the article, that the FDA actually stopped the trial at one point in time because they said we're not really seeing efficacy here. So,
because it's a silly idea. Alzheimer's disease cannot be treated medically. There's nothing you could do. There's nothing in the tool of the doctor's tool of or bag of magic tricks. There's no tool in the doctor's bag of magic tricks that can deal with a degenerative disease. So let's discuss dementia or Alzheimer's dementia. There's many different kinds of dementia. There's Parkinson's dementia, Lewy body dementia, sclerotic dementia, and then Alzheimer's is the one most people think about. It affects something like 6 million Americans. Actually, more women than men suffer from Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's, the classic manifestation, the classic sign of Alzheimer's dementia are what we're talking about, these amyloid plaques. Amyloid is a protein. It's a fibrous protein. The body will secrete fibrous proteins wherever there's damage. Amyloid is present when tissue is damaged. There's actually a disease called amyloidosis that is caused by the presence of amyloid in the joints and in the nervous tissue in various parts of the body. You don't have to have amyloid. It's in the brain. They call it Alzheimer's, but you can have amyloid in different parts of the body, because it's a fibrous protein that's secreted in response to damage. The problem isn't the amyloid; it's the damage. Amyloid's a Band-Aid. The body's protecting itself, and this is what the problem with this drug is, and why it doesn't really work, and why we'll never have a drug, because there's strategies to get rid of the amyloid, but the problem's not the amyloid.
That's a symptom.
It's not even a symptom. It's a protective mechanism. It's a Band-Aid. It's the way the body's trying to protect itself and trying to repair itself. So this new drug, aducanumab, is a biologic, and by that I mean it's a class of drugs that mimic the body's own chemistry. In this case, they use, and whenever you hear UMAB at the end, there's a whole bunch of drugs that end UMAB. You're referring to monoclonal antibodies. Antibody is a chemical that the body makes that shoots things down. That's why you have antibodies against viruses, for example. And one of the new strategies for dealing with viral infections, you know what I'm talking about, is antibodies. They give you antibodies to the virus, right? Regeneron. It's an antibody cocktail, they call it. And they give you antibodies to shoot the viruses. These human drugs are all antibodies that shoot down parts of the immune system. One of the main strategies for dealing with immune problems, autoimmune disease, is to shoot down the immune system. Missiles, chemical missiles called antibodies. So they design an antibody that will shoot an inflammatory factor or an immune chemical. Bingo, no more inflammation, no more immunity. They haven't corrected the problem, shooting down the body's response to the problem. In this case, this new drug, they're shooting down the amyloid. They create antibodies to amyloid, and that they clear the amyloid out. They haven't done anything to take care of the problem. Just shot down the Band-Aid. They ripped off the Band-Aid, basically, and that's why it doesn't work. And as it turns out, omega-3 fatty acids are natural amyloid clearers or amyloid removers. Get yourself on omega-3 fatty acids, and not only will you be helping your body clear out amyloid, but you'll also be getting all the wonderful benefits of omega-3 fatty acids, including improved brain health, improved vision, anti-inflammatory benefits. And this is why nutrients are so powerful. This is why I say nutrients are what drugs dream they could be. A nutrient is what a drug wishes it was. Not only do you get the aimed for, the targeted benefits, you get extra benefits.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't that the nuance right there? Is that a drug is like it's like putting in a thumbtack with a mallet or something like that. They always talk about the effects and the side effects. To me, that's a misnomer. They're all effects.
They're all effects. There's no side effects.
It's just that you're advertising this particular effect.
Relative to what you're advertising, it's a side effect.
Right.
They make it sound like, oh, it's a whoopsie. It's like, it's an accident. Oh, whoopsie. No.
Right.
It's not a whoopsie. It's how it works. It's the mechanism of action. The adverse reaction is a natural sequel, a natural response to the mechanism of action. It's part of the mechanism. It's not an adverse effect. Nutrients, likewise, those are not beneficial effects. They're effects. We can call them beneficial effects to compare them to adverse effects, but they're not. Like you say, they're just effects. Omega-3 has wonderful anti-inflammatory effects. Most people are going to be deficient in omega-3s. If you're worried about dementia, or God forbid, if you know somebody, and by the way, my dad had dementia, had Alzheimer's, a real severe case of it, so I have personal experience with it. It's horrible, absolutely horrible disease for anybody to go through. And I can't even picture what goes through somebody's head when they're starting to get it. Imagine when you're starting to, that it's coming on, what that must be like for you and for your loved ones. It doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen. There's so many different avenues that you can take, approaches that you can take in order to keep this the brain healthy. Number one, lay off the sugar. Alzheimer's is called type 3 diabetes. You have type 1 diabetes, which is autoimmune. You have type 2 diabetes, which is insulin resistance. And you have type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's. And they call it that. It's really part of the whole syndrome of messed up blood sugar. But that's how significant the relationship between sugar and dementia, or sugar and brain health is that they call it type 3 diabetes. So control the sugar. Number two, there are little pieces of bacteria that enter into the bloodstream that initiate immune reactions in the blood and ultimately in the brain. These little pieces of bacteria, they're called LPSs. Have you ever heard of these? Lipopolysaccharides. And these LPSs are fragments of bacteria that live in your intestine. Say, how do bacteria that live in your intestine get into the blood and into the brain and cause inflammatory factors? Right? Leaky gut.
Yeah, right.
So fix your leaky gut, And it's not just LPSs, it's also little small particles of undigested food. So work on your digestive system. Make sure you're using digestive enzymes. Stay away from problem foods. Use probiotics. Probiotic supplements can help correct LPS, or help correct leaky gut syndrome and LPS entrance. And by the way, LPSs are responsible for a lot of inflammatory issues, especially weird skin issues. There's a lot of weird things that happen to the skin, weird red things that happen and rashes that happen to the skin. And doctors have no idea, dermatologists have no idea what to do with this. Almost guaranteed you got some element of lipopolysaccharide, or LPS, that's entering into the bloodstream. Again, back to the gut, patched up the intestine. Doc gets a bad rap sometimes. People tease me. They say, "Oh, Doc always talks about gluten this, gluten." Well, he's right. It's not so much the gluten. Yes, the gluten triggers it, but it's the damage that it causes to the intestine, the inflammatory damage that allows particles of food and these LPSs to enter into the bloodstream that account for everything. So that, they'll say, "Oh, everything." Every time somebody calls up and says something, Doc says gluten. Well, yeah, because leaky gut is behind everything. It's not just gluten, but gluten is a major culprit. So using strategies, number one, to avoid damage, like staying away from problem foods and problem food components like gluten, but also strengthening the immune system. Using omega-3 fats to strengthen the immune system, zinc to strengthen the immune system, probiotics to strengthen the immune system, digestive enzymes,
sunshine.
Well, vitamin D, yes.
Vitamin
exactly.
D, yeah.
Vitamin D, and there's a major relationship between vitamin D and the intestine. So keeping the intestine strong is the second thing you could do to protect yourself from dementia. Relaxing the body. Stress, cortisol, amps up the inflammatory or makes the body more sensitive. Cortisol is actually an anti-inflammatory, but weakens the immune system. It makes the immune system more susceptible. More susceptible to it makes the body more susceptible to toxicity, put it that way.
Okay.
It makes the body more susceptible to toxicity because the inflammatory system is protective. Elevated cortisol suppresses inflammation, suppresses immunity, so it makes you more susceptible. So what you want to do is you want to relax the body. You have another thing I should tell you is there's a sewage system in the body. It's called the lymph. You've heard the lymph, right?
Right, sure.
I've talked about lymph before. Well, you have a very specialized form of lymph in the brain. It's called the glymph.
Right.
Literally called glymph instead of the lymph. They call it the glymph. One of the most important things you can do to keep the glymph clear and a clogged up glymphatic system is linked to brain health issues. The way a clogged up lymphatic system is linked to body health issues. Sleep.
I was just going to say sleep is the sleep's also been found to be so important.
Lymph clears itself out when you sleep. Cortisol will keep you from sleeping. Older folks are way more susceptible to insomnia than younger folks. Older folks are much more susceptible to cortisol imbalances than younger folks. In fact, almost all the older folks, including my mom, and my dad when he was alive, they cannot sleep. My mom cannot fall asleep. I try to tell her to use relaxation strategies. That just goes completely over her head, poor lady. And I don't even. It's the horror of not being able to sleep. Let alone the fact that it makes it difficult for the brain to clear itself, the glymph to clear itself out. So making sure you're relaxing, making sure you're sleeping, make sure you're using slow, deep breathing techniques to clear the lymphatic system in the body.
Well, exercise for me is huge on that front. I find that
it's incredibly valuable, and not not just a walk around the block, but something a little stressful, something a little strenuous, something where your body says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" You want your body asking that question.
Right.
Are you sure you want to do this? That means you're pushing the envelope a little bit. You don't have to do a lot, and you can rest a lot. A little bit of exercise and rest a lot, and of course, getting on a great nutritional supplement program. One of the all-time great supplements for the brain is, and I don't hear very many people talking about it, lecithin.
Okay, I've heard you mention it.
The same stuff that's in your ultimate enzymes. Lecithin is a complex of phosphorus compounds. Phosphorus, I've been studying the periodic table for many years. And when you study the periodic table, you get to know and love elements like they're your friends, or they're like football teams or baseball teams. They all have their own personal characteristics. Phosphorus is the light bearer. Phosphorus is associated with intelligence. Phosphorus, the Greeks used to call phosphorus Lucifer, the light bearer. Why is it the light bearer? It glows. Why does it glow? Because it's highly electroconductive. They used phosphorus in fireworks. They had to outlaw phosphorus gas in World War I because they were using it as a key component of chemical gases.
It's called phosgene.
And I think that's insecticide, isn't it?
In the First World War, the first poison gas was called phosgene.
It was a phosphorus derivative. It was a phosphorus compound.
Much more potent than chlorine gas.
Yes, exactly, because phosphorus is highly electroactive. In fact, phosphorus was discovered in urine. They were looking for gold in urine. The old alchemists they were obsessed with gold, right? So they were looking for gold, and they tried to find gold in urine. Instead of gold, they found this stuff that glowed in the dark. Phosphorus. That's how they discovered phosphorus, as a glowing substance in urine. It's a key component of bioluminescent jellyfish and various animals that secrete light. So it's the key atom, the key element in DNA. DNA is based in phosphorus compounds. So phosphorus is associated with intelligence. Phosphorus is associated with neural conduction. Phosphorus is associated with brain health. Now, if straight phosphorus, we don't really have deficiencies in, but if you use lecithin, you get special phosphorus compounds that are important for neural conduction. So, and you can use lecithin, or you can use derivatives of lecithin. There's a supplement that a friend of mine came out with. I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's called phosphatidylserine, PTS. Have you heard of this?
No.
phosphatidylserine. It came out about 20 years ago, and a friend of mine wrote a book on it. And he started making supplements with phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine is a part of this whole lecithin complex. Phosphatidylcholine. There's a wonderful brain supplement called alpha glyceryl phosphoryl choline. And in fact, choline also is really important. Choline works with lecithin, with phosphorus. And choline is found in lecithin. And you'll find choline in all brain supplements. The Synaptive, by the way, from longevity is a good source of choline. You know one of nature's best brain foods is? This is really interesting. You never hear about this.
Are you going to say bananas?
No, I'm not going to say bananas.
Okay. What
this is a compound. This is nature's best food, period. But especially for the brain. It's loaded with lecithin, one of the best sources of lecithin, choline, omega fats. It's like almost specifically for brain health. Vitamin A, which is also important for brain health. Eggs.
Oh, right, sure.
Yes. Eggs are brain
and cholesterol as well.
And of course the cholesterol, absolutely, the cholesterol. Eggs are brain food. And Doc gets a bad rap. I don't know about eating a dozen eggs every day, but you want to eat eggs. You don't want to, unless you have eggs. Some people can't. If you have egg allergies or something like that, you can't have that.
Ben, I remember seeing an interview with this guy who lived somewhere in, I think it was Louisiana or something like that. He lived to 114 or something along those lines, and he's being interviewed, and he said, "Oh, I just eat 6 eggs every morning, some bacon, and then I go down the river and I eat a crawdad."
All right.
This guy, he's outlived, by 30 years almost the life expectancy. So it kind of made me scratch my head. And I don't know about the bacon, but
I'm not sure about the bacon. I have a problem with that one there. I was on Coast to Coast. Did you hear me on Coast to Coast last time? I was talking about there was a contaminant. I forgot what it's called. They found in diabetes. Was it diabetes drugs? Was it metformin? I think it was a nitrosamine. It was a nitrogenous compound that was found in as a contaminant in metformin. Metformin, of course, is a diabetes drug.
Right.
Well, that same so-called contaminant that's metformin is found in spades in bacon and bologna and salami and cured meats. That's why it's on the 10. I'm pretty sure it's on that list, the 10 horrible foods list or 10 bad foods list.
Right.
And it is, and that's one of the main reasons, because of these nitrogenous compounds that are found in sausage and cured meats in general and bacon. And by the way, you know how there's this whole bacon thing? Everybody wants bacon ice cream and bacon chocolate and bacon mushrooms and bacon this and bacon that. People don't really like bacon.
They like salt and grease.
And they like fat.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Salt and fat, and there's probably some sugar in there too. That's why they always put sugar in bacon.
They do. They load it up with all kinds of weird stuff. But they sweeten the hell out of it.
Got the three foods human beings can't handle. So try having some bacon sometime with no fat in it.
Right.
Fat bacon. How delicious would that be, right? Or bacon with no salt. How delicious would that be? It wouldn't be very delicious, would it?
Right.
Like no salt on your bacon, like completely removed the salt. It's like cardboard, right? It's the salt and the fat and the sugar, which is really important, because what it says is you can hack into your cravings. If you want to wean yourself off of bacon, not everybody does, so it'll be fine. But if you do want to get off of bacon, get your salt from Celtic sea salt or minerals. I like Celtic sea salt. Minerals probably do the same thing. And by the way, the more stress you're under, the more salt you need. And the more stress you're under, the more salt deficient you're going to be. So salt cravings are a sign of duress, a sign that the body is cranking. The adrenal glands are your salt processing glands, basically. The adrenals and the kidneys. Those are the two major centers in the body where we process salt. So when you're under duress, you're going to want more salt, because we're all under duress. We can't stop eating salty foods like bacon. So tap into your salt cravings with Celtic sea salt. I've talked about this. Take a quarter teaspoon of Celtic sea salt, put it in water, stir it up, and sip on it really slowly until you don't want salt anymore, and you're not going to want any more salty food, whether it's bacon or pretzels or French fries or whatever your favorite brand of salty food is. Minerals, you can try using minerals as well. I like salty water because it tastes delicious.
Yeah. Right.
Have you ever tasted just water that has salt in it, just salt water?
Is for many, many years, it would be an occasional treat for me to make some kind of salty beverage. It's just something that I did naturally.
It was just H2O, plain old distilled water with salt in it. It's really amazingly delicious.
Or a little rosemary, salt water.
You can add a little spice in there too. But what's interesting is how simple a delicious food can be if it hits your hot buttons, it hits your craving buttons.
Well, Ben, have you ever found yourself with a with the brine left over from pickles or something like that. And find yourself sipping that?
I imagine it being delicious. I can imagine it being very, very delicious. Yes.
My mom would catch me doing that, and she would say, you're gonna pickle your liver. But I think I was onto something.
You needed the salt, absolutely. Plus, there's bacteria, I imagine, in there too. So there's good bacteria. And then for fats, make sure you're using your essential fatty acids. One of the first things that'll happen when you start getting on EFAs, not the first, takes about 3 or 4 weeks. You'll start to notice you're craving less fat. You're craving less fatty foods. And then for protein, or for sugar, the more protein you eat, the less you're going to need sugar, because protein can be used for energy slowly. Protein gets turned into energy in a very efficient process, but slowly, in sustained release fashion. So up your protein, take care of your sugar cravings. Up your EFAs, or start taking EFAs, and tap into your fat cravings, and use some Celtic sea salt and water, or Himalayan salt, some kind of salt that's got all the minerals in it, or use your ultimate minerals, plant-derived minerals, and make sure you're getting enough minerals, and you'll find yourself needing less salt. Respecting your cravings. So you're talking about bacon, I'm not here to tell anybody what to eat or what not to eat, but just know that if you're dealing with a health challenge, you're eating a lot of bacon, that represents a point of power, a major leverage point for you to be able to improve your health. So I'm not sure. We're talking about these nitrogenous compounds that were in metformin. Metformin, by the way, is being suggested by alternative healthcare practitioners as an anti-aging substance, as an anti-aging drug. And there are people who are suggesting that we take metformin. In fact, Life Extension, I don't know if you're familiar with Life Extension, they have a reputation for being on the cutting edge of a lot of supplements that nobody's ever heard of. And they're usually pretty good, but they're really big on metformin, which is a prescription drug and comes with replete with all the toxicities associated with prescription drugs. But the point is that they're onto something very important, and that is that when you stabilize your blood sugar, you live longer.
Right. And
all of this is, Jonty, it's so simple. It's the triangle of disease. It's the 3 points. I'm big on simplification.
Right.
The body seems like it's really complex, but it's really not at the fundamental place. You're big on IT, right? Information technologies, right? In information technologies, you have the most complicated information that all comes from zeros and ones. The most complex algorithms come from binary. Just come from the simplest to as simple as you can get, next to 1, 2.
Right. Well, one of the things that I've found differentiates a person who's really skilled in my field with somebody who's kind of just repeatedly running into walls is the problem-solving process. Folks can talk to me and they say, "Do you know this technology?" And I'll say, "No, but I'm really good at the process of solving problems."
So you can figure anything out then. If you know how to solve problems, it doesn't matter what the problem is, because you got the fundamental problem-solving skills.
Exactly.
All kinds of various problems all respond to these basic skills. You know what they call that in physics? It's called Simplexity. Have you heard of this term? Simplexity.
No, that sounds fascinating.
Simplexity is the simplicity that underlies complexity.
Oh, right, fantastic.
And it's a legitimate physics concept, Simplexity. I have multiple books that are titled Simplexity.
Well, that's really what you've created with the triangle of disease and the square of health is a problem-solving process.
Yes. You backtrack to the triangle. No matter what disease, cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, autoimmune problems, skin problems, whatever, backtrack to the triangle of disease. Cortisol, stress management, relax the body, move the body, make sure you're oxygenating, blood sugar, stabilize the blood sugar, eat less food, eat less refined sugar, eat more protein, help your body move sugar around, reduce fat intake, reduce body fat, anything you do to keep your blood sugar stable. 3, more fiber. And then the fundamental point, work on the digestive system. I am guaranteeing anybody out there who's dealing with a chronic health challenge, if you take care of the triangle of disease and the 4-fold square of health, nutriate, respirate, move, and rest, there's not a single health challenge, not a single chronic one I'm talking about, chronic health challenge that will not improve. Infections and trauma, you got to do what you got to do for infections and trauma and acute kinds of issues, but for chronic, long-term degenerative issues, it is so tragic to me when this answer is so simple. And I'm not even talking about completely being 100% cured. I'm talking about feeling better, feeling stronger, feeling happier, having better quality of life, having more energy. It's so tragic to me that you've got these simple 3 points and the simple the simple 4 points on the fourfold square of health that we can all do from the comfort of our living rooms and bathrooms and bedrooms and at home without interacting with the medical model. We can start today. And that is, I challenge anybody who's dealing with a chronic health issue and feels like there's nothing else that they can do, that it's all hopeless. I challenge you to start working on the triangle of disease and the fourfold square of health. Get on a supplement program, get on longevity, start studying about your body, get exercise bands. You know, have you seen these exercise bands?
Yeah.
I don't even go to the gym anymore. I just have bands and dumbbells and an exercise ball. Get a rebound and jump up and down. Practice slow, deep breathing. It's so important to oxygenate. Under conditions of low oxygen, you trigger that stress response and you mess up the entire metabolic system. Under conditions of long-term shallow breathing or hypoxia, low blood oxygen. And then make sure you're oxygenate, move, and rest. Make sure you're taking lots of relaxation. Lighten up. You know, meditate. Just chill. Nobody's getting after a
The exercise is going to help move the lymph and the glymph, isn't it?
Exercise moves the lymph and the glymph. Absolutely. In fact, exercise is how the lymph moves. The lymph doesn't have, it's attached to the muscle. It doesn't have a pump. It depends on muscle movement.
Right.
The lymphatic system depends on muscle movement, and that includes slow, deep breathing. You know, you have a complex, you have a pumping muscle that right in the center of your body that's designed to push fluids up and down, like an accordion. Pushes fluids up and then pushes them down, and then it sucks them back down. Pushes them up, sucks them back down. It's called your diaphragm. And when that diaphragm moves up and down, all the fluids in your body get pumped. There's a pumping action that is linked to the fluids. How do you move how do you assure effective movement of the diaphragm? Slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing.
Well, I've also heard that singing is very good for you, and I imagine that's connected as well.
Absolutely. Singing is awesome. It's great it helps you. A good singer is breathing. Good singers sing from the belly, right? Good singers sing from the belly. So there's so many ways that we can approach this that have nothing to do with the medical model, which doesn't work anyway. Coming from circle, this is exemplified by drugs that treat Alzheimer's disease or Alzheimer's dementia by trying to shoot down the Band-Aid.
Right. Exactly.